The U.S. Navy is turning to artificial intelligence to speed up that process, awarding Domino Data Lab a contract worth nearly $100 million to help unmanned underwater vehicles potentially change that timeline from months to weeks. Joining us now is Thomas Robinson, the Chief Operating Officer of Domino Data Labs, here with us in New York. Great to have you here on set. And
thank you for having me.
Let's start with that. What is your company able to do? We've heard from former admirals about the perils of these mines and the strait, the difficulty of removing them. We've heard about how there were demining vessels that have been kind of offloaded by the military. So this is a crucial and difficult problem at this point. What is your company able to do to expedite things?
Right. So we're a software company, and we build a platform and AI solutions. And the particular thing that we're helping with in the Navy is updating their ability to use AI models on unmanned underwater vehicles. Everybody's seen the movie Titanic?
Yes,
you can imagine underwater vehicle, right? Those vehicles have sonar, vision, other sensors, and that comes in as a stream as they pursue the waters and look for objects. You know, historically, that was reviewed by sailors, right?
By humans.
By humans,
yeah.
Right. They would scrub through and see, you know, all the particular things and identify, you know, maybe they had a sheet to identify what a particular a mine or weapon looked like. But that's a great task for AI. Right? The AI allows you to rapidly speed up. You can consume and review all of that in one short period. And, you know, the AI can be trained to make fewer mistakes. Humans get tired, you know, 8-10 hours on the job, maybe, you know.
It's monotonous work.
Right, exactly. So, you know, that's essentially what the AI is doing.
We were also talking to one of our colleagues who was in the Strait and was explaining how, I mean, we've been covering this, but I had assumed it was a more complicated operation than putting a mine on a small speedboat and literally dumping it off the side,
right.
Which I would imagine makes it really hard to track where they're doing that. Can you do a surface level analysis as well, or does this help make up for the fact that it is so hard to track where they're putting these, especially in a strait that we understand is very hazy and visibility is very low?
I saw your reaction to that yesterday.
Thank you for watching.
I noted it. Yeah, I mean, that is the challenge, right? This is a massive asymmetry because you have mines that are not very expensive, and then, yes, putting them off the side of a speedboat. But on top of that, the adversaries are constantly updating their techniques. Maybe a mine goes inside a 55-gallon drum. You know, what does that look like on the seafloor? How do you know that's a weapon or not? So, you know, that's where the technology is so powerful, especially this ability to refresh rapidly to adapt to adversarial and different theater changes, if you will.
We talk a lot about, I guess, the big names in AI. They get a lot of attention outside the context of military use, just generally speaking. And there's always been this speculation, when are we going to move to these kind of the tier beneath that, other companies like yours that are doing this kind of important work. I wonder if you could just shed some light on your capacity to pivot so much as you have to work on national security issues. So this isn't a company that was founded to do this, but you obviously recognize the need and the applicability of what you're doing to national security needs. What can you tell us just about how that pivot has been and what that level of dialogue or interface with the Pentagon has been like?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us as a company, as you said, you know, we've been in business a little over 10 years, and we started as a commercial technology and serve many of large global pharma, many financial services organizations use our technology for mission-critical AI. So, you know, we got the call from the DIU, the Defense Innovation Unit, a few years ago, and I've heard a lot of horror stories about working with the government, right?
Talk about a long timeline.
Long timeline. Contract, try reading a contract. There's a lot to it. But there's a moment here that is different. There's bipartisan support for recognition that we need to enhance America's capabilities in the defense industrial base and in technology. And so, you know, we thought we had technology that had been proven in the commercial sector that would be very viable to use in defense. And thankfully, you know, we've, like I said, we already work on—
Can you say what it was in the commercial sector? I'm trying to think what you were doing that is now being applied to minesweeping.
Well, look, we have a variety of different solutions and use our platform in a variety of different places. In pharmaceuticals, we help 10 of the top 20 global pharma organizations across their entire pipeline. So that could be early research and then development all the way through clinical trials and manufacturing. There's a lot of different parts of that process that could be enhanced by AI. And in financial services, we have large customers that use us for risk modeling. You know, you have trillions of dollars in flows in your book, and you want to make sure that risk is well managed, right?
We'll get to the broader existential question I think a lot of us and companies in AI are facing right now, which is what's the involvement of humans going to be going forward? So we see that in the context of Anthropic, obviously, the debate now, legal case that they have with the Pentagon. They're concerned about that being ceded to computers entirely. Where do you see all of this headed? Obviously, the work that your company is doing is in concert with these unmanned vehicles, but I imagine there's a human component there as well. Do you foresee a time when there is no human doing some of this work, or?
I think that's very hard. And look, I've often heard the phrase that, well, China is going to do it. And you know, man, what a bad idea, right? There are lots of things we wouldn't do that China does, right? And so I think it's a really important debate. I think in particular with the Pentagon, look, at the end of the day, who sets the ethics? It is the Pentagon lawyers, it is the Congress, and it's ultimately us as the voters who are putting folks in place, right? This is an important conversation we're going to have over the next...
Is it you as an executive as well? Is it a roiling conversation in the company as well about what the ethical stance of Domino Day Labs is going to be?
Look, we certainly talk about it, but we're not going to be a vendor who takes on encumbering an organization with you know, a particular ethical bound. That's a job for somebody else. I will say, you know, what I think is critically important for tech companies to do is these technologies have limitations, as does any technology, right? And so when you say to the government, I have a piece of technology, you need to define the bounds in which it can be used the same way.
But are you confident they'll stick to that definition? Like, you've set out your boundaries. Do you have faith? You just said try to read one of these contracts. Do you have faith that it will be used the way you say it should be used?
Well, look, at the end of the day, that is an imperative of the operators to use the technology in the right sort of way. We get this question a lot about the risk of AI, and I think ultimately everyone who's using an AI system still owns the responsibility of what it does. If you're a pharmaceutical company betting your new drug on AI, are you going to cede that to a machine? No, right? And the same thing is true for the operators who use this technology.
So about 30 seconds left. How quickly were you able to make that pivot? So you saw this need. The war is still a very, I mean, it's been 8 weeks. How quickly were you able to make the pivot?
Point.
Yeah, so look, the beautiful thing about our technology, the thing that we've done for the Navy is reduce the retraining time from months to days. And that's a critical imperative when you want to go to a new theater, right? So the value that we're providing, a technology developed in peacetime over the past 4 years is ready to be deployed rapidly, you know, not something that's going to take a year to get deployed.